Hey there, you're listening to the Not So Breakfast Show with Sasha and Ish. Alright, welcome to the Not So Breakfast Show today, and this is the one where we get to interview Mid Thomas. We're talking about career transitions, leadership, and surprisingly politics. Plus, Sasha gives us a little tip of how she never will get into politics.
And so what I do from time to time is I write a tweet that is so hideous and has so many bad words in it that it will prevent me from ever being a politician.
And we have a good go at Santa.
The only way I can describe it is you have this image of what you would expect Santa Claus to look like, and it was like finding out that Santa Claus is, actually someone completely different. And
an old white guy who's a bit racist. I'm pretty sure that's not Santa. I'm pretty sure Santa's okay. All right, that's the show. Let's get it. All right, welcome to Not So Breakfast Show today, and this is one where we get to interview Mid Thomas. She is the Managing Director at B Suite, helping people be sweet in business and life. She is the chair on the board of Exercise New Zealand. Previously, she has been a president of Rotary at the Hut in Wellington, among a plethora of other things that she's involved in. And I've been wanting to use the term plethora since I saw The Three Amigos in 1986, so it is a win-win all around. And to help me interview Mid today, I'm going to throw over to Sasha Coburn. Hey, Sash, is it plethora or plethora?
There's a plethora of ways that you could describe me. Plethora, I don't know. I don't know what's right, but I know what you're talking about, and that's exciting. Also exciting, just a quick update, I'm on that new healthy thing. Turns out that affects your insides quite a lot. Don't need to say too much more about that. But I did just get a little alarm notification on my phone. It's now 4 p.m. and it said time for dinner.
Oh.
So, let's see how my 40 days in the desert is going. We're about 7 days and I'm about to throw it out the window.
Oh, wow. Well, anyway, thank you so much for being on the show today, Mid. I mean, we've worked together a long time, so we get to hang out quite often, but I think you haven't seen Sasha in a while.
No, I haven't, and it was just like, I just wish I was like close to you guys so I could hug you and, hold you tight and say, yay, it's so nice to see you.
With my whole new eating thing, it's really good we're not in the same place, and I'm not going to say anything more about that, except that you are not just a fitness legend, but my favourite people in fitness are the people who are phenomenally fierce in terms of how well you keep yourself, but also super smart, and you definitely fit into that category. So we're really interested in hearing about what you've done since you kind of left the fitness world. Maybe not in its entirety, but you certainly stepped out of running a club, which is what you had been doing. So, I mean, what are you up to now?
Oh, wow, that's the $1 million question. So what am I not doing is always probably an easier answer. Look, when I stepped out of, and I'll say not stepped out of completely, because I still do some, I still have some mahi for Les Mills, which I love. I still, that business is just a big part of my heart. But when I walked away, I did go, oh, right, that's it. I'd made a decision that I was going to go and run my own businesses, and I'd finished my MBA in 2017, and it had been a thought in my head. We've been running my husband's business for a wee bit anyway. Not that I really wanted to do that, because that's artificial turf, and yeah.
Pretty sexy, Mid.
I remember someone saying to me, I think it was actually our mortgage broker, and she goes, oh, the future for you is turf. And I was like, you just don't get me. And even when we first sort of started that business, I said, what's your little slogan? And Peter goes, oh, Peter lays anything. And I remember thinking at the time, I don't want to work with you. I don't really like you that much. I mean, I know I married you, but so we'd had that, and that's still going and doing, and Pete, that's Pete's life, and I do some background stuff there. But to be fair, that's what gave me the opportunity, really, or afforded me the opportunity to be able to step out into the unknown without too many massive commercial needs. I didn't have to have a full-time job, which I almost feel privileged in saying that. But it did mean that when I first started up B Suite, it's nothing like what I thought it would be. It has ended up being something completely different. I mean, that's the wonderful world of entrepreneurship, I suppose. It started off, it was going to be essentially a coaching business until I recognised that I prefer large groups to one-on-one.
People are so needy.
And, and the funny thing was, even just the last couple of weeks, I've had a couple of people reach out to me and say, please, Mid, we really need some time with you. And there was this piece of me that went, I just don't want to, but I did, and look, it's what started the business in the first place. So it was one-on-one coaching. It was business focused, but the funny thing about it was, despite the fact that I'd spent a bunch of time working in Les Mills, run my own clubs at points, and also obviously spent a bunch of time with Pete's Business and did my MBA, which was next to no good when you're running your own business. It's great for middle management, but that's about it. I didn't have the skin in the game to truly be able to sort of set myself up as a prominent business coach. And, whilst I don't want to get into the racial conversation, I will talk a little bit about that mahi that I'm doing at the moment. I'm a Māori female in my early 40s. And in a world that's predominantly dominated by white male men in their 50s and 60s. And so breaking into that market was not easy. So I got a couple of larger clients. I found that actually if I just worked with one or two different businesses, that was an easier way to make things work to start with. And then, of course, COVID hit. The whole world just went. And I remember lying on my couch just thinking, what have I done? Like, what the hell have I done? I've just, because even when I left Les Mills, my husband wasn't happy. I'd left the security of a regular income. I'd left the security of an organisation that always looked after me. And in his words, you didn't even tell me you were going to do it.
Surprise.
And I was like, well, yeah. Oh, by the way, I resigned yesterday.
Happy birthday, babe.
Yeah. Well, you'll be eating noodles for a few months. I really thought to myself, holy shivers, I've made the biggest mistake in my life. I hadn't. What actually happened during that period, I did all those awful videos on Facebook, as you might remember them. They were terrible. I look back at them and I cringe. I was also 20 kgs heavier, which makes me cringe even more. And so it was just all a little bit not great. But what it did do is it gave me my first base. And from there, I ended up getting a couple of opportunities, and then we ended up going down the government route, to be honest, and thinking about what that's going to look like for the business. We had an opportunity here at a local facility just down the road. Well, the place, there was another business that I had an interest in. I wasn't running it or anything like that, and that kind of didn't go very well with the guy that I gone into business with, and he just wanted to step out, and so we had this facility, and I thought, you know what, just to make life easy, I'm going to chuck a little boutique gym in there. I know I can make some money out of it, or at least pay its way. And we put a nice, an easy option in Stokes Valley, knowing that we'd only get maybe 150, 200 members, and that's exactly what's happened. So what ended up with B Suite is we ended up with these two facets. One is this little gym thing on the side, and I do call it a gym thing on the side, like it's nice for this area. And then, of course, we've got this coaching development type business, which has ended up being in the Māori space, particularly in relationship to Te Reti o Waitangi. And that then led me to the contract that I'm currently in, which is working with MB as Māori Learning Lead, which is a huge role, and really loving this space. Also doing some work with different organisations like Rebel Business School. They do 2-week business programs that are funded through MSD and council. And we've just really launching into the rangatahi space in terms of trying to uplift or work towards supporting this kaupapa of inequity with iwi. So I've doing a little bit of work with my own personal iwi here, Ngāti Toa, with a 12-week whānau business program, and some rangatahi stuff heading to Whakatane actually next week. So my life couldn't be any fuller. So that's sort of work. And then on the side, I have these other things that I am desperately passionate about, One of them is the work that I do with Women of Worth. And I sit on their board as chairperson, but also from time to time have supported them with some content and some facilitation work. And then, of course, Exercise New Zealand. And funnily enough, I managed to get on a council funding panel. Don't ask me how. So that's kind of what I'm doing right now. And in all fairness, like people sort of say, oh, you have got so much on. But everything I have is work that I've chosen to have now in my life that fills me and doesn't feel like work. So,
well, you make me sound really lazy. I'll just put that out. I kind of think I'm juggling stuff, and then I realize how much you're juggling. But what's so interesting about the stuff that you're doing is you really do have this sort of altruistic view of the world, and like I've met people that put other people first and really do want the best for others, but you really live it. Like you kind of have this amazing presence about you, and when you're doing your coaching and your feedback, and that's probably the reason why you keep taking one-on-one clients, is you do really want to support others, you want to see others thrive, and you want to see them do really well, and that just comes through in all of the stuff that you're involved in.
We'll be right back.
If there was one skill that could double your income, advance your career, and increase your ability to influence, it is the skill of presenting. Whether it's on stage, in the boardroom, or at a job interview, the 30-Minute Presenter program will help take you to the next level. So check out our Instagram page, click the link in the bio, and get started on the 30-Minute Presenter program.
You know, the funniest thing about that, Ish, is I don't know if you remember back to the day when we did that Hogan report. Remember the
I do remember the Hogans.
Yes, the Hogans. And I think my altruism was like 100%.
Yeah.
And recognition was 0. So I have to remind myself to tell people that they're doing a good job, because otherwise look, how do you even explain altruism in terms of where it comes from? I just have always had a desire to make the world a better place. And is that born off the back of, having a really challenging upbringing? Quite possibly. But I think more than that, it's just how I was made. Like my mum, she's got a photo of when I was 4, and it was the first time I was angry. Which is quite interesting. And she said I was always the kid who just wanted to make everyone either be happy, or I was just always worried about other people. And part of that is probably because I'm quite empathetic. So, however we want to measure empathy, apparently it's a mirror neuron, and it's a thing. Maybe I just got more mirror neurons than the average person. I'm not sure. But I would walk into a room and I would feel people. Like, it's really hard to explain, but I'd know exactly where people were at. And so it meant that I would feel their hurt, or I'd feel their pain, and it pained me. And so I just wanted to make things better. I didn't realize it at the time, and probably, to be really honest with you, it's probably only been in the last maybe 3 or 4 years that I've really let go of my own pain from my childhood and the trauma, to be able to sit in the best version of myself. And it's not easy, right? Like, it's not easy to, and you don't have to have, like, I'm not going to go into detail of it, but you name it. Sexual, physical, emotional abuse, that was my life, and even when I sort of, on the odd occasion that I have, it's odd now, I used to do quite a lot of work with the police, and I would again volunteer my time just to go and have a kōrero to young girls that have been sexually abused, to say, hey, look, I was you and now I'm here, there's hope. So it was really just to give them that sense of something, of it's possible. So whether or not I had this altruistic thing inside of me from day dot, I just believe that everything in my life was meant to be what it has meant to be. So when things come into my world, I don't go, oh gosh, I shouldn't do that. I go, oh well, looks like this is the next game. I better step up. Even to the point where I set up a board for B Suite because I knew I was crazy. And I knew, God, if I'm let loose and I'm allowed to run wild, who knows what will happen. So I set up a board of people, and they're all very lovely, beautiful, smarter than me. So that's always a good starting point. And they really didn't want me to do the rangatahi stuff. They were concerned, and they had real valid concerns. They were concerned I didn't have time. What are you talking about? Time. They were concerned that I didn't have a strong enough grasp of te reo. So I'm a beginner learner in the te reo space, despite the fact that most of my work is now has a Māori kaupapa. And I fought fearlessly with them, literally for about 2 hours. And end of that conversation was essentially, why should we deliver these amazing products to the private sector where we get money for it, and here are rangatahi who we have skills that we could uplift them, and just because of something that I haven't learnt yet, we hold them back from having great programs. And in the end, they all went, and I said, and sorry, I'm meeting with iwi on Friday. That was Tuesday. So,
Yeah.
But I thought to myself, lots of people talk a big game about helping other people and closing the inequity gap. But how are you actually doing that? Like, what is your organisation actually doing? And I said that to the board at the time. I said, look, the only thing you must always do is keep in mind that this business was created to help people. And that's always got to be at the forefront. Like, you guys make sure that I don't go broke. But it's got to be about helping people. The other piece around the altruistic conversation, I thought that I wasn't good at business because of it. So it took me a long time to get over that hang up, because I thought, I am so altruistic, I'm just going to give everything away for free. I had to get my head around it, because actually what's ended up happening is all of the stuff that I've given, it's come back to me in a whole bunch of other ways. And we have got sustainable businesses, and what drives us is not money, but we've got enough people around us that do that and care about that well. And my husband did say to me at one point, he goes, oh my God, I've never known anybody who works so much for nothing. And I was like, well, that's why you need to keep digging holes, sweetie.
Get on the turf.
Yeah, get on the turf. You go lay anything, brother.
I do feel I need to point out the dog barking in the background. That's Mid's dogs, because she has all the dogs. Because she did the classic thing where you got a dog, and then you did the next thing, which is, well, you then got a dog for your dog. And of course, everybody knows now that you just keep getting dogs until they look after themselves, I think. Is the rule.
And it's also that whole first child versus you know how you have the first child and they're awesome? I mean, I don't actually know this. I'm talking because I had twins, and so 1 minute apart is not first and second child. But I've heard the rumours that the first child's always sort of quite awesome, and that was Arlo. I was like, oh, what are people talking about? Hard work, that's ridiculous. And then we got Luna.
Lunatic, I think.
She's a Pomeranian that thinks she's a rock wheeler, and like anybody that comes near me is fair game. Like, my husband can't even kiss me anymore without her coming and attacking from the side. It's some angle around his ankles. Anyway, yes, I do have dogs. The story behind the dogs is they are to fill the gap that is now missing from my children.
I'm so excited about my children leaving, and I will not replace them with dogs. You heard it here first. Here's what I want to pick up on some of the things that you're talking about. The first observation that kind of struck me is when you say, you know, Pete says, oh, we're doing all this work and you've got nothing to show for it. That's because our definition of successful business is rested on profit being the outcome, you know, financial profit. And I think as soon as we start weighing the time that we spend in other ways, the sooner we can smarten our businesses up. The second thing that kind of stuck out, for three things I want to say, that was the first one. The second one, going right back to the beginning where you say, hey, you don't want to talk about race and all of that, but when you first started out, you're trying to get decision makers who are largely older white males making decisions and taking you seriously. And when people say, why do we need diversity in organizations? It's because we need people who are able to see value. So I think anyone that says no to the value that you bring to an organization, as in it's a technical word, an idiot. And yet, if they can't see it, it's because there's things that are getting in the way. So let's just call it that. So good, it's racism, it's an inability to see that somebody who looks and presents differently to me could bring any value. And as soon as we increase the diversity of our leadership, we increase the opportunities for people to contribute. And that's important. We've got to call that stuff out day in, day out, every time we see it. And I just got to say that as all the privileges that I have being a white woman, it's exhausting to be round the table constantly flying the flag for diversity. But it's nothing compared to what people who have intersectional challenges, the things that they face. So our challenge is to the guys who are in positions of responsibility and power to be one of the good guys. And that doesn't mean just be not racist. It means be actively pursuing and raising others around you. Right? It's not just they go, but I don't tell I don't tell racist jokes, and I'm learning how to say dope bore. And for them that's like the work done. And for me that's just the minimum of being a human, right? We raise others up, around us. And the third thing, this will be like a series of monologues, you talk, I talk, and it's kind of it's not so much a question again as an observation, and it might turn into a question. As I think one of the great risks that we face with people like you who are phenomenal and have so much to give in terms of the mix of heart and smarts and really want to do good in the hood, the risk is that you do take on too much. You end up burning out because what you end up helping at a granular level. And I think the challenge is always to say, how can you help at a granular level so you are still helping individuals, but actually what I love about what you're saying about working with government departments and working with MB is to say, how do we change things systemically? Otherwise, when you either burn out or you die, we go, well, that was great, but now she's gone. As opposed to, here are the structural changes and the systemic changes we were able to implement. And I always find that a challenge, and I don't know if you do too, where you're choosing between getting in and helping, at a micro level that you can physically see the results, or the work where you say, actually, I'm not going to deal so much with individuals, but I do want to make a difference on a wider. And how do you grapple with that? I mean, is that real for you?
Yeah, actually, that's my life right now. So I guess the challenge that you face, and here's probably a little bit of an answer to the last point. All three of us are phenomenal at what we do in the facilitation space, right? You guys are my heroes, just FYI. I'd watch you guys present and think, oh, how can I be more like Sasha? And how can I be more like Ash? Although, I don't want to be a man, but
especially a white one, getting close to 50.
You guys were really, you two particularly were probably my first role models in the facilitation space. Emma Barry was in there, sorry. Emma Barry was definitely, I used to watch her and just think, wow, what a spectacular woman. So when you're good at something like that, you get pulled in to stuff. And so you end up being the front of it. And so what I have done over the last couple of years is tried to not be the front. That's been how I've got myself out of it. And even funnily enough, I'm doing a module for Les Mills, can you believe it, next weekend. But even pulling myself out of all of that kind of mahi as well, really taking myself out of that equation. Not that I think I would have still been there, I definitely I'm older now, I'm not the target market, so to speak, but it's just making a decision to get into to work on the system, not be the piece that delivers the system. So right now, that's essentially my job, is to figure out how we can get some work across 7,500 people. And you just can't run one-on-one seminars. You can't shift or change things. And then there's that conversation that we have in leadership, be the change you want to see, right? And I guess I try and do that in the micro conversations that I have with people. They're always the same. Like I don't have one way of thinking over here and another way of thinking. I just have the way I think. That is it. And then I guess where I do have to still continue to be really mindful, Sasha, is around that doing too much.
Yeah.
As I just outlined everything I'm doing right now. Would you believe I've said no to stuff?
Look at you,
and
growing.
I know. Because in the past I would have said yes to Women in Worth for everything. Now I'm like, look, I can't facilitate those courses. I don't do any work now with Young Enterprise. I haven't got time for that.
Well, it's probably also starting to understand where you give that the most value, because actually you'll probably find that if they can get your time for 30 minutes and it's on point and it's just mid-delivering what mid-delivers really well, will be as much value as maybe the way that you might have operated with them in the past and given them an entire day. So
yeah,
I guess you starting to even reframe your focus in how you deliver, because I know that the stuff you did with the Exercise New Zealand boards around the treaty was just really impactful, because I guess I'm in that, classic white guy getting close to 50 and you kind of go, I've been to Waitangi. I understand the treaty. I studied it at school, and it's like, I have just no idea. And when you kind of took us through the context and where it fits and the history and why things happen the way that they happen, suddenly it was just a different filter, a different layer of appreciation, a different layer of understanding, really, and switching on an empathy that I just didn't have before. And I'm definitely not saying I'm there, but that conversation was so impactful. And then you multiply that across other boards and everything else that you do. And that's how you see that change in the world.
Yeah. And look, that piece of work, I think that's the other key. And this is actually something that I get from you, Ish, you and Sash. And all of the work that you guys did in terms of the module training, like the time, the effort that's put into creating content. I've seen examples where people have got a course one week and they're putting the content together the week before, and I just kind of go, no, it actually upsets me, and upsets me from a place of we're not giving the best to the tauira that are turning up to do that, and to the students that are turning up to do that mahi. And so that particular piece, that took us 8 months. I even published a book, not that it was an amazing book, but I still published it.
Just in your spare time.
Yeah, definitely don't buy it. I wouldn't. I haven't tried to sell it. But it's that level, and we've got a couple of, I'm sure Rawari won't mind me having this conversation. That particular piece is, in terms of the framing of the content, is Rawari, and then we got a guy over in France to do some research around cultural empathy, and then we sort of tied that in, and then I came over with how this could actually work and feel, and then we had another person who came in and checked it, and like all of that's not my idea. That's watching Les Mills do exactly that process, just being so committed to quality. And so I think when it comes to leveraging who you are, it's about doing your best work, but knowing how you get your best work. And you're right, that's when you make the biggest impact. And that particular module now, it's like when we did it for Exercise New Zealand, it was solid and it hasn't changed, but we're really slick in delivering that now. And we're probably having at least one or two. We just did agri research last week. So there are a lot of people going, wow. Probably the most powerful comment off the back of that particular mahi is there was, I won't say what organisation.
You can. It makes it much better.
It was an organisation from Christchurch.
Say no more. We are the racist capital of New Zealand. So, yep, no, we got you. Good.
And anyway, so this particular woman approached us because her sister-in-law had done our course. And she said, look, mate, I'm just going to be really honest. She was the most racist human I've ever met. and she did 180, and I don't know what you did, but whatever you did, we want you to do that with us. And I said, okay, well, as long as you've got 2 hours. And she goes, 2 hours? And I was like, well, that's all we did. That's kind of it. It's understanding what your superpowers are. I think that's really important. Knowing what you're great at. I'm great at emotionally connecting people to content. And again, stuff that I learned from you guys, tell our story. Don't tell 5, 10 stories, and then make sure those stories, relive them every single time you tell them. And that's been a big part of helping people to experience that journey. And then finally, I believe all organizations will have to, if they haven't already, evolve to have a far greater lens over people and environment, because I just don't think the future of business is going to be about profit alone. It still has to be about profit. When I'm teaching business, I'm not saying, hey, do things for free. I'm not saying be a charity. Well, I am. I'm saying if you want to do things for free, be a charity or be a social enterprise. But it's still going to have to be about profit, but there's got to be those other lenses. And at the moment, one of the lenses that Aotearoa New Zealand is trying to look through is a bicultural lens. And I think if we can work hard to understand Te Ao Māori, because they have some beautiful kaupapa when it comes to kaitiakitanga and guardianship of the land as opposed to an ownership and all of those types of that kind of whakaaro. I think once that becomes part and parcel of our society, which it will, I mean, it's getting there now, but off the back of the Public Servant Act, I think it's 2020, they have a responsibility to partner with Māori and authentically partner. So I think the more that sort of creeps in, I think we're going to find that most organisations in some way, shape or form, if they're not already doing it, it's not new. I think it's just going to become more common practice across not necessarily the large organisations, but in New Zealand, because most of our economy is made up of small to medium businesses. So, top of the head, I think it's like 92 or something, 95% are small to medium businesses. So that's mum and dad businesses like Peter and I with our turfing business.
I'm always really torn between two worlds. I mean, as you know, I'm the treasurer for the Green Party, and so I have...
No, I didn't know that. That's awesome.
I didn't know that either.
For the Waikato branch, and that's my little way of serving, and I give them money all the time, and people find it hard to reconcile, like this mad capitalist who's also green. And one of my frustrations with the Green Party is we're not radical enough. It's kind of like probably the Māori Party are the most radical at the moment, and so I'm caught in this bind where I'm like, on the one hand, if this is the system, and the system is capitalism and make as much money as you can, and then you choose what you want to do with it, then I'm going to play that game. And I want to make as much money as I ethically and responsibly can so I can give lots of it away. Because from what I can see, there's a whole lot of, let's not call them bad guys, but let's call them bad guys, like evil Bond villains who win who gets the most money.
Yeah.
And they do really dumb things with it. So the fact that they can have so much money and not think that maybe world hunger or housing might be a good use, but instead it's like, why don't we all just have a dick race to space? I'm like, wow, man, wow. That's like on an international scale. So I'm like, if we're going to be in the system and the system's not going to change in my lifetime, then let's play this game really hard and really well so we can do good in the hood. I have that. Then I have the other hand, which I'm like, just stop being in business and become the radical activist that you are at heart and work hard to burn the whole system down. And I mean, you must feel that tension a little bit between I want to work within the system to get the change and to be the change that I can. And on the other hand, the pace of change is so glacially slow sometimes.
This is why I love you, Sash, because you're so extreme. And I it's been around people like you that actually give others a sense of who they are, because most people you'll be at 95 to 100%. Most of us will fall around 30%, close to that space. Yeah, for me, the interesting part is, especially in recent times with the mahi that I've been doing, what I've found interesting is there is a genuine appetite to want to make a change. And I think I wasn't convinced that was the case. And so I'm working in MB, so I don't know what other ministries are like. I don't know.
That's the Ministry of Business, Innovation and Economic Development, Employment.
Yeah. Look, I've been actually quite blown away at the engagement level across, particularly senior leaders in the organisation. So I think that's quite a powerful place to play. I guess I'm not as radical as you. I would love to be. I'm just probably not as brave as you, Sash, for you to outwardly say it. But I do struggle when I see some of the political. I mean, it's part of the reason why I couldn't. There was conversations around me running again for council, for local government, and I just can't do it. I really can't. And that's part of the reason why me being in as a public servant, I feel really comfortable in that space, because I can influence and I can impact and I can make a difference at a level that's really going to matter in a way that I know sits true to my values. When I ran for council, I just couldn't believe that this is how people behave,
How the sausage gets made, man. Do not watch how the sausage gets made.
Oh, look, it was just, the only way I can describe it is you have this image of what you would expect Santa Claus to look like, and it was like finding out that Santa Claus is, actually someone completely different. And
an old white guy who's a bit racist. I'm pretty sure that's not Santa. I'm pretty sure Santa's okay.
Well, here's the thing. I'm always tempted into politics because there's this illusion that we could make a real difference in our world if we got into politics. And so what I do from time to time is I write a tweet that is so hideous and has so many bad words in it that it will prevent me from ever being a politician. So I'm deliberately laying skeletons in my own closet so that if I ever say, oh, I want to run for local government or I want to run for central government, someone would just dig up my former tweets and go, you can't. And I'm like, that's right.
Oh, and they will.
That was past me protecting future me, because almost everyone I know who's become a politician either regrets it or loses themselves, or they just become meat in the sandwich, right? So any change that you can make outside of the system is great. And the only reason that I can say brave things is it comes from my privilege. I have nothing at stake here.
Yeah.
When you're a public servant, you can't say too much without, so we're all kind of trading off all the time.
Yeah.
I wasn't saying these kind of radical things when I had no money. I'm only saying them now because I've already got my Tiger Turf tennis court, right? I've got my turf. Sort of. No one can come and rip up my tennis court just because I said something. So I get there's a complete contradiction, because you could just say to me, if you care so much about poor people, sell your tennis court and give the money away to the poor. And I'm like, yep, that's going to help X number of poor people, but it's not going to change the inequality in our system. So for now, I'm just going to keep my court. And I get that that's an ugly position to be in, but I don't know, somehow I reconcile that with myself.
Yeah, we've always had a modest life. Peter and I, we've never been uber wealthy ever.
We can see your massive TV in the background, Mid. How are you kidding?
Okay.
That is my big-ass television.
Except for the TV. When it comes to TV, we invest and double down.
And couches. This is the story I share all the time. So Pete and, I always worked for somebody else. Pete always worked for somebody else. And it was only when he started up his turf business. And I remember the first 12 months of him being in business. It was like watching someone go from rags to riches, but the awful side of it. Because, I think the most that he'd ever earned would maybe be $30 an hour. Maybe. It might have even been $27 an hour. It was either the median or just below, right? And he went from that to almost a $500,000 sort of job by himself, it's just ridiculous money.
That's why my tennis court costs so much, people.
And I remember the first 12 months were hideous because he was spending money as fast as he was making it on trips to Samoa and all these, because all of a sudden he had all this money to give away, and he'd always been a giver. And it's one thing I love about my husband. And I remember at one point he turned around to me and goes, "You're really pushing it." And I was like, pushing what? And he goes, with this tax stuff. And I'm like, what do you mean? And he goes, well, I'm watching how much money you're paying them. That's not okay. I went, if you make money, you have to pay taxes, bro. Like, it's really interesting because we've been in a place where I've said to him, you've got to be mindful. Like, making more money doesn't mean you give more money away. It actually means you've got a bigger responsibility to be mindful about how you use it. If there's some personal things that you want to use it on, that's great. Go for gold. We can budget that into this. But if you just want to give things away randomly, that's not helpful for anyone. And you're actually not helping anyone by giving them stuff. Colonization has proven that. Please don't get me wrong, and don't get me started on the welfare system, but when you hand out money, we've got 5th, 6th generation beneficiaries, and there's a better system than just turning up for a weekly paycheck that limits you in every way, shape, and form. But the answer to that is so complex, because it's breaking the boundaries of colonization in relationship to how a whole society feels about themselves. And people go, oh, well, we'll just educate them. And it's like, well, but it's more than education. Oh, we'll give them better houses. There's been so many. A friend of mine works for Oranga Tamariki. They put beautiful homes, and they got homeless people, people who've been homeless for a long time, put them into the homes. Within a couple of weeks, they were gone. They were back on the streets. It didn't feel right for them, And I guess what I'm saying there, Sasha, is keep your tennis court.
Thank you. I was waiting to the point where you were absolving me of my responsibility.
I don't know if you guys saw the breakfast show the other day with John Campbell when he did his kind of farewell speech, and it really got me, actually, because I loved it how he, when he first went on TV3, in his career, he said kia ora, and people wrote in and said, we will never watch TV3 again. And then he turned to Jenny May and said, now you speak to Ray, every day, all day on breakfast, and then was able to turn to Indira and talk about the Dawn raids, and then able to talk to Maddie McLean and say, here you are, able to marry your husband and being embraced by the public, and just that change. But that's from people like you that are just investing in community, investing in people, and changing perspectives, but doing it in a way, like you said, that you just emotionally connect people with content and you move people to shift. So just, thank you so much for that work that you do, because it really does make a difference in people's lives. And keep on trucking, man. Keep doing the turf thing as well, because I know that's helping.
Don't worry.
We'll always have grass.
We'll always have grass, funnily enough. I always believe that everything happens for a reason, and I know that sounds a wee bit da-da-da-da. Yeah, and I know that where I am right now is exactly where I'm meant to be in the world. I've always thought to myself, one day I will truly help our people, and that is my goal, is to help with the inequity issues that we're facing. And it's a combination of things. It's uplifting Māori, it's getting European, whatever you want to call, because I hate using the word Pākehā if I'm using Māori over here, European, to feel. And then actually it's about helping Māori to not be so angry and to find a way to work together. I mean, and I said this quote about my tūpuna, how Tohu Kaki and Te Whiti from Parihaka, they said in early 1900s that if European and Māori could learn to truly respect and work with one another, we would be an amazing society. And I just believe that in my heart. I wouldn't be who I was without the European system. I wouldn't have the knowledge. I wouldn't have an MBA. I wouldn't have got to work with Ish. And all of the wonderful skills.
You could get reparations for that.
And then on the flip to that, when I look at the Māori culture, and when I look at actually what it means, what kaitiakitanga, what whakawhanaungatanga, what those things actually mean, and what was important to Māoridom pre-colonisation, I go, wow, if we could build the best of both, we would take New Zealand to another level. We all have this right to this Indigenous culture, and I'm half Scottish. I go back to Scotland and I get goosebumps. I feel it. My whānau is the bad Campbell, so I don't I don't say that publicly. Oh, I'm saying it publicly.
Yeah, so that is so awesome to hear your vision and how you blend that heritage together. And I want to take back what I said about staying out of politics. I've changed my mind. I'm going to stay out of politics, but we need you in politics, Mid. But I'm not telling you what to do, but I'm about to tell you what to do. The problem was you were going local body, and that's a shitstorm. We need you on our national stage. We need you influencing on a much bigger stage, on a bigger platform, bringing your awesome heart and mahi to more people. So pick your party, find your spot, and go. We will fundraise for you from the Not So Breakfast Show and back your campaign, because voices like yours are the voices that we need to hear, that will heal our rifts, but that will also take really aggressive action to deal with our inequality and our inequities, and move us forward by acknowledging that we have to grapple with our past. And so thank you for the work that you are doing, the work that you have done. And our encouragement is to everybody who's kind of doing a job and going, well, maybe my time is past, maybe this is just going to be my lot now, this is my job and this is my career. There's always an opportunity to go and do more somewhere else. And what I love about what you're saying is that you've taken the risk into entrepreneurship, but you've also found your way back to something that is very meaningful and purposeful for you. And I think that's a challenge for all of us, is to do work that matters, that resonates with who we are, and you are a living embodiment of that, and we just acknowledge you for that today.
Yeah, thanks, Mid.
Thanks, guys, and thank you for having me, because I've just been waiting for the
Listening to the show another week saying, oh, I wish it was me this week.
When will they run me?